financial literacy, and the human condition. Welcome to Financial Fitness with the Money Doctor, Dr. Francis Rayam.
Hi, it's Francis. I just wanted to take a minute to thank you for watching this video. If you're catching us on YouTube, please help us help others by clicking like, subscribe, and all notifications so you don't miss any videos. And check back for the next video. I think you're going to love it. Thanks again. For more information, you can visit us at hugyourmoney.com.
Welcome to Financial Fitness. I'm Jess Tyler, along with the Money Doctor, Dr. Francis Rayam. Hi.
Hi, Jess. How are you?
I am doing okay. Someone's on vacation, so I feel like I'm a little frazzled this week, but, I'm glad they're getting away.
Oh, yes. Well, we just finished a big vacation weekend, so I want to talk a little bit about, after hearing some complaints from people about, oh, I spent too much and gas prices are huge, and do you know what it cost me to rent a car? So, vacation should be about enjoyment, not about worrying about the money. So
that is true, but I do know a lot of people that go on vacation, spend whatever they want, and just say, I'll worry about it later. And then that part's not so great.
That's pretty much most people, don't you think?
Yeah.
I think that's what the point of taking a vacation is, to get away from all of that. And so it's easy to throw caution to the wind. But I'm going to talk today about some things that you can do to save money in ways that don't cramp your style. So you can actually enjoy the vacation and use that money you saved for other things. Maybe it's a great experience, or maybe it's paying your bills when you get home, whatever it is. Let's not waste money in places where we don't get any enjoyment out of it when we're on vacation.
Okay, sounds good.
So some of this will be about foreign travel, what happens if you're going abroad, and some of it will pertain to everything. And who knows what we'll end up talking about. But the first thing that comes to mind is something called peak end performance. Now, when you're making a vacation plan, especially if you're bringing your children and you're going to someplace exotic, or someplace that you think, okay, we have to go now because the kids are aging and we will never have this opportunity again.
Yeah.
And you tend to load up almost every day with all the experiences you possibly can. We're going to go to Disney today, we're going to go to Epcot tomorrow, we're going to go to Busch Gardens the next day, whatever it happens to be. Okay, there is something called peak end performance. And it's a sports term as well, but it's used in this way to make sure that you're getting the most bang for your buck. In other words, what will you remember when you come home from vacation? Will you remember every experience you had 3 years later? It's not likely. But what you will remember is what you did at the peak. What was the pinnacle of your vacation? Were you going to go on a safari and, shoot pictures of a giraffe? Was that the big deal for you on that trip? And what did you do right at the end? Believe it or not, just before you get on the plane, that's what you remember. I can remember personally being in Venice, Italy, and I wasn't there for very long at that time, and the vacation was okay. But I remember two things. I remember losing my favorite pair of lingerie at the hotel and not being able to get it back, oddly enough, because it was really a favorite. And I remember the experience just before we left. There was Aqua Alta, which is the moon is full and the water comes up too high in Venice, and you can't get onto the boats, right? They don't come in. And so this guy in a cigar boat came flying into the rescue, like in the movies, right? With all the guys on the gondolas, cheering him in. And so we got on this boat and zipped over to the airport. And so, believe it or not, that leaving experience is one of my favorite memories of Venice, despite the fact that I saw lots of beautiful things in Venice. So if you want bang for your buck, try and do a bunch of things that you like but aren't hugely expensive. And maybe cut corners somewhere else, but pick one peak performance and one end performance. And those will be the big things, the things that you spend the most money on, because that's what people will remember 3, 4, 5 years.
It is really hard going on vacation. Like, we go to Florida every year, and you just notice the prices inching up more and more and more. One trick that we do is, my sister's got a timeshare, so we can use that. But for anybody else, like getting a hotel room with a kitchen or kitchenette, so you don't have to do every single meal out. Because it's just that kills you with the budget.
Yeah, it really does. And even when you're on vacation and you're eating out, one of the tips is to try to eat like a local would, right? Don't go to the place with the incredible view of the Eiffel Tower, because you're going to pay for that view. And you can go see the Eiffel Tower separately.
Mhm.
Try to find a restaurant that's a little out of the way. Ask some locals, where's a good local place to eat? Doesn't have to be fancy, but we want really great food. And
Mhm.
again, maybe you spend one really expensive dinner out somewhere if that's your peak or your end memory. And the rest of
Mhm.
the time, you do what you're saying. You either try to eat like a local inexpensively, or you try to get something where you have some way to cook at the facility, or that you at least have a refrigerator. Like if I stay in a hotel, the first thing I ask
Mhm.
for is, can you make sure there's a little refrigerator in my room? Because I could never eat all the meal, right? So
Mhm.
I
Yeah,
always get a to-go box right away, stick it in the fridge, and then, you have another meal for lunch or dinner or whatever. So
yeah,
that's one
that's a
of the
good
things.
idea.
So if you're traveling abroad, the first thing to remember is I don't want you to pay those foreign transaction fees. They're 3%,
Okay,
right?
so how do you avoid that?
So you can avoid it by, first of all, checking the exchange rates before you leave. So you can do that at different websites. There's a site called xe.com that you can check your exchange rates at. And if the exchange rate is good here in the US, exchange money before you go. And we'll talk a little bit about how to get a good deal on exchange rates, but definitely do that. Use a bank branded ATM. Don't go to a little kiosk in Europe and try and get money out of it, because you're going to spend more than you would if
Mhm.
you went to a bank chain ATM. And avoid exchanging your money at an airport or a tourist site. Those are the
And a lot of
most
people do
expensive.
that, yeah, because they forget and then they think, "Oh, I'll just do it right there."
Yeah, yeah. So, a little bit of a walk to out of the way somewhere, you'll get a better exchange rate if you have to exchange in the foreign country. But try and exchange money before you go. Now, when you're exchanging money, if you do it in large bills or you do it with a group, you can sometimes get a better rate. So if you're traveling with a group, don't go up individually and exchange your money. Have a little conversation off to the side. Decide on how much money you'd each like to exchange. Try and make it the same amount to make the math easy when you come back with the exchanged currency. And
Mhm.
then go and exchange your money, because you'll get a better rate with larger bills or with more money. So don't exchange $5 bills. Exchange 20s, 50s, hundreds, right?
Okay.
Or
Yeah.
exchange it in a group. Bring it as a group and do that. Now, when you come home, please don't bring home a bunch of foreign exchange, foreign currency, because the banks here aren't going to exchange it for you. Try and minimize that. Spend whatever you're going to spend over there. Don't spend it just because you have it, because guess what? Most of the airports have a kiosk where you can donate that foreign currency to charity. So at
Okay.
least if it's just going to go to waste in your sock drawer, at least,
Mhm.
donate it to charity. So, try and avoid that. It's just complete waste to spend that. Oh, there's one more thing. When you're checking out, a lot of the cashiers, the systems will allow you to choose whether you want to pay in a US dollar or the local currency. Always pay in the local currency, because if you don't, you're going to pay an exchange rate
Mhm.
that's inflated because you're at a restaurant or you're someplace where they know they've got you, so they charge you a higher exchange rate. If you pay in the U.S. dollar, even though that has to be exchanged, it's your local bank that you bank with that is making the decision about what that exchange rate is, and it's probably in your favor, rather than paying the extra exchange rate because you
Mhm.
paid in U.S. dollars at the restaurant.
So do you think that you're better off, because I think it's always hard when you're going to go on vacation and you have to do an exchange rate of figuring out exactly how much money you're going to need. So do you think it's better to get more than you need and then have to do the exchange thing you said on the way back? Or is it better to get a little bit less and maybe pay a higher rate to get the exchange at some smaller place, like you were saying?
Yeah, well, I think, that's like timing the market. How are you going to do that properly? So you want to bring some cash, some minimal cash for when you need it, and some credit card or debit card. And one of the things you can do if you're worried about overspending is you can
Mhm.
get a prepaid travel card that you can load with any kind of currency. So that might help you to feel more secure and to say, okay, I've loaded it with this much currency. I'm okay. I don't have to use it all, but it's on this travel card, so it's not all cash. I'm not worried about getting robbed and having my cash on
Mhm.
my on hand. But I think it's probably better to, obviously it's better to plan it perfectly, but none of us will, right? But I think it's better to maybe have a little extra. You can
Okay.
probably afford to get a little extra at our exchange rates rather than pay for it over there. But if you get trapped, just go someplace local, away from the airport, away from the tourist traps. and
Mhm.
exchange some currency there. Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
Okay. So, what happens if you're traveling at home or even if you are abroad? What about some packing tips? Now, what is the money doctor doing talking about packing tips? I I haven't run completely amok where I must tell you how to do everything in your life, but there are some things about packing that will save you money, lots of
Okay.
money. And remember, we said this is about ways to curb your spending in places that don't cramp your style. Okay.
Is one of them the weight limit on your suitcase?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It is. It is. And it starts with your suitcase. You know,
Mhm.
if you like to buy the gorgeous leather, hand-tooled, beautiful suitcase, you're going to pay for it, not just when you buy it, over and over and over again every time you travel. That can add up to 8 pounds over a lightweight suitcase before you ever put an item in it.
Okay.
Yeah. So try to buy a lightweight suitcase if you can. Then try and buy a checkable size so that you don't have to check your bags for airlines that are charging for them. And most airlines are now charging, $25 a bag each way or whatever. By the time you get done with a family, you could have bought another ticket at least.
Mhm.
So that gets trickier as the airlines get fussier about what you can travel with. I recently bought, maybe a couple of years ago, actually, now I bought a suitcase from IT Luggage. It's not that I'm
Mhm.
doing a commercial for IT, but they're the only ones I could find that had this size. It's like a train case size. Do you know that size? It's slightly
Mm-mm.
smaller than, so the airlines and the luggage people will say this is a carry-on,
Yeah.
but it only fits on some airlines, like on the budget airlines, like Breeze or Spirit or whatever. It won't fit. They won't take it under your seat. But this little
Okay.
cube thing is just a couple of inches smaller. I forget the exact measurements. It might be 17 inches or 16 inches or something like that. But it's hard shell. You
Mhm.
can pack a ton of stuff in it, and it fits right under their seat. And so you don't
Okay.
have to check a bag, you can save money. Now, what do you do if, like me, you're going to Italy for 10 days and you've got that little cube and you
Mhm.
like clothes? What are you going to do about it? You're going to roll your clothes up rather than pack them, rather than fold them, I mean, and use those dorky little things you see on TV called space bags,
Is it
you
where
know,
it like suctions all the air out?
Yes. Get some space bags. They're cheap. And
Okay.
try and get the ones that you can just lie on until you flatten them out. I'm sure I'm giving giving these real graphic images to our listeners, but literally I will roll my clothes up, put them in the space bag, lie on them on the bed, like on my stomach or something, until I've squeezed almost all the air out of it, zip the little zipper stuck. And because they're flat like a little brick, you can put
Mhm.
so much stuff in your suitcase. And you can even leave room for things that you buy when you're away to
I
get
was
back
gonna
in.
say that is where I always go wrong. Like I'll always bring the carry-on because the same thing. I think I can buy something if I need it, but I'm not paying the extra fee. But then you get wherever you're going and you're going to get stuff to bring home to people. So then it's a whole other thing trying to get the stuff back.
It is. Sometimes people are going specifically for shopping. And so they'll pack a suitcase inside a suitcase so that they have a
Mhm.
complete empty suitcase, but then they have to pay to bring it back. And you just have to
Right.
weigh, is it cheaper to ship the stuff or buy it at home or bring it in your suitcase back? So
Mhm.
wow, there are lots of things you can save money on. And I think we're probably at break, right?
Yeah, we are.
So
Okay.
lots of things that you can save money on, and we'll talk more about it. But I just don't want people to be worried about the money while they're on vacation. And I really don't want them to come home feeling like they overspent. Instead, let's just trim some things that don't matter and move on.
Okay, we'll have more coming up, but first I want to get your phone number.
Sure, it's 413-773-3333.
And you can visit hugyourmoney.com. We'll be right back with more with financial fitness with the money doctor, Dr. Francis Ram on WHMP. Welcome back to Financial Fitness. I'm Jess Tyler, along with the money doctor, Dr. Francis Ram, and we're talking about one of my favorite things, vacation.
Yeah, mine too. I don't get many of them, but boy, when I do, I really want to make it count. So
Mhm.
One of the things people have complained about a lot lately to me is the cost of a rental car. I can't
Yeah,
believe,
it's gone way up. I was looking for Florida for coming up in November, and it's unbelievable how expensive it is.
yeah, I mean, it really adds something to your fare. And I'm going to gripe just for a moment about how much I miss a good travel agent.
Hmm.
You know, we used to, this is a pet peeve of mine, that we now are forced to do things on our own and pay more for it. Like
Yeah.
that sign about it's $25 if I do it. If you watch, it's 50, right? You know, you go to the grocery store now, you pack your own groceries most of the time, check out your own stuff. Half the time the
Yep.
scanners don't work. Do you get a discount? No.
Right.
Prices keep going up. Well, same thing is true for travel. It used to be great. In fact, I'm kind of surprised that we got rid of travel agents mostly. I don't know of a travel agent anymore. Do you? Do you know anybody?
No, no, I really don't. I mean, I see some travel sites, so I'm assuming people work there, but I don't know anybody that calls a travel agent to book a vacation now. They do it themselves.
Yeah, if there's a travel agent listening to this show, call me, please. I'd like to talk to you, and I
Yeah.
would love to. They'd be an interesting guest to have on the show too. But also, I think that's a service that we undervalued. And now, you do it yourself. It takes you forever. You're not sure if
Hmm.
you got the right rates. And I remember in that trip to Italy I was talking about, I think the first time I went, I used a travel agency sort of thing. It was like a group agency. And so I
Hmm.
got group rates on some things, but I didn't have to
Yeah.
go on everything they had. And that
Right.
still exists. You can find places that will offer you group rates for the tickets that you might want to use to go to the Coliseum or someplace, but you don't have to take the bus tour if you don't want to, or you don't have to do the
Hmm.
flights, but you can get a deal on the hotels because they're
Yeah.
using power of a group. And the same thing is true about group discounts like AAA or Costco or BJ's, where you might get a discount because you're part of a bigger organization.
Hmm.
And so you might get a discount there. Some of that does pertain to rental cars. Sometimes you can get a discount on a rental car. But there are some other things you need to do to trim your expenses on rental cars. The first is avoid the prepaid gas. You know, fill up the car and bring it back full. Don't let them
Yeah.
charge you $5 a gallon when you bring it back. It's
A
just
lot of
such a
people do
waste.
it because they know they're going to forget. You know what I mean? They know that they're going to forget and it's just for convenience. Everything that's convenient is more.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. It's true. In fact, that's true of the insurance also on the rental cars. So, they always ask you, do you want the insurance? And sometimes they're a little pushy, like, well, if you don't have the insurance and you get into an accident or you injure somebody. So
Right.
here's a big thing you can do before you ever leave for vacation, weeks in advance. Call your insurance agent and find out, hey, if I rent a car and I hit somebody, what am I covered for? Will it pay
Hmm.
for the accident to the car? The damage to the car? Will it pay if I hit somebody and injure
Hmm.
them? And you might have a personal policy that covers you for liability as well. Even your credit card company that you use to rent the car may
Hmm.
give you that insurance for free. So that's one of the things you can do is if you have several credit cards, you can figure out, well, which one am I going to use to rent the car because I
Yeah.
get the perk of the insurance. And then you can feel comfortable declining the insurance. I never recommend that you just go not covered, right? But
Hmm.
there are things you can do. In fact, if you don't have insurance at all, or if you don't have comprehensive, you can ask
Hmm.
for something called a loss damage waiver, which
Okay.
protects you. It limits your liability of responsibility if there's an accident. And you can
Okay.
check your personal policy to see if you're covered for liability. So avoid the expensive insurance if you can find that you're covered another way on a rental car.
Hmm. Yeah.
Even that contactless pickup, where you get your keys out of a little kiosk or an app unlocks your car. Sometimes that is a money saver for people just because they didn't have to encounter somebody who was selling them on extras, right? So you
Hmm.
make all your decisions when it's calm. This is like my tip about shopping where I say, give it a ride in your cart and go to the back of the store where nobody's bothering you and make your decisions. Same thing
Yeah.
with contactless pickup. Yeah. Oh, two more things, I think, Jess. Shop many sites. That almost goes without saying, but sometimes people say, I always rent budget. I always rent whatever,
Hmm.
Avis.
Yeah.
So shop several sites for the best price and try to be flexible. If you can change the time that you pick up the car, even by a half an hour, just try it out on the web. What happens if I pick it up at 3? What happens if I pick it up at 3:30? And you may
Hmm.
find a better price by shifting a half an hour's time,
Yeah.
which really isn't much.
Another little thing I'll add, just a little personal tip, is if you have kids and you're going and you're going to rent a car, it's almost cheaper to either pay the extra fee to bring the booster seat, or I mean, if they're booster seat size, or just run to Walmart, get a booster seat for $19, because otherwise, by the time you're done renting the car, it's like an extra $150 for the booster seats.
Wow.
Yeah,
See,
so that's something I've learned.
Not having children, I didn't know that cost, but I do know somebody with a granddaughter, and they travel back and forth from North Carolina quite a bit, and they shipped up a separate seat. It paid for them to ship it up just to stay at the grandpa's house, so that when they're here, they have a car seat. It's not even a
Yeah.
booster seat, it's a regular car seat. But
They
you
add
know,
all those fees onto the rental and it just jacks up the price. You're like, what? Where is this from? And then you see it's the car seat. They charge you like a daily fee for it, for each one.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, anything like that that you can minimize. When you're traveling and you're using your cell phone, again, before you go, before you're where you're having to make this knee-jerk decision, ask your provider, do they provide free data when you're abroad? Can you get,
Yeah.
or if not, get a local SIM card when you're over there to use the data. Don't just rack up these ridiculous cellular data roaming charges, because they can be enormous. I remember one time I went to Canada and I had arranged this before I went. Oh, and check your bill when you come home. Let me say that. That
Yeah.
bears repeating. So I arranged it all, as you might imagine, before I went. And when I came home, I reassimilated into life and went on with my daily chores. And one day my cell phone bill came in, and it was something like $348, and it was usually like $50, And I called them up and I said, but wait, I arranged this. Oh, we don't have anything in our records. I had to really squawk. I had to know who I
Yeah.
talked to. I had written it down, what time, plan on it. Another thing, talking about, planning on things like that you have to pay attention to and be vigilant of, sadly, that you have to be your own steward and fight for yourself all the time now. But we're in a litigious society, I think, is the rental car. When you pick up your rental car, you will thank me one day for this tip. I promise you will.
Okay.
When you pick up your rental car, I don't care how nice the guy is that walks around it, or the woman walks around it and says there's a scratch here and a ding there. You take pictures of the outside and the inside of your car. If it has to be one video, fine, walk around it, take pictures of the inside, because if you bring it back and they say this wasn't here, you don't have any way of proving it other than that. Maybe you missed it when you were doing the once over. Maybe you did a contactless pickup, right? Like we were talking about. There's nobody there to go over it and say there was a ding here or a scratch there. So before you leave the parking lot, take pictures of it, video if you have to. Yeah, I was just thinking about other generic things that you can save money on in your vacation. Being flexible is one of them, of course. If you can change your time a little bit here or there, or a day a little bit here or there, you might save some money. But try and travel on low season or off season if you can. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to be going to the beach in the middle of the winter, but you might be going in May rather than June, July, August, or you might be going in September. And because you're off that peak season, you'll save yourself a pile of money. And the same is true if you're going someplace like a ski resort or something like that. Rather than staying in the highest priced city that's right there at the edge of the mountain, look for other places that might have ski in, ski out, facilities, but they're maybe not, in the middle of whatever, in the middle of the hottest city that you want to go to, right? They're not in Vail necessarily. They're maybe slightly out of there. So just think about that. Or maybe even you go to another country. So instead of maybe going, if you're thinking of, let's say, a European vacation, right? Maybe you go to Slovenia instead of someplace else that, might be higher priced.
The other thing that I've been doing is using Turo. I don't know if you know that, where you're renting someone else's car.
Yes.
The only thing you got to be careful with is, for me, it's like making sure that you put on the button that says free airport pickup and drop off. Otherwise, you have to kind of go off site. But I've been able to save money that way too, because the car rental prices are so expensive.
That brings me to an idea that I had not even thought to talk about today, but I've done it. There are house swapping things. So if you have a timeshare, like you can swap it with somebody else's timeshare, you can do it with houses as well. So if you have a vacation,
Kate Winslet movie. Did you not see the movie?
Oh, that's right.
Yes. Yeah.
I forgot. That was a good movie, actually. I forgot about that.
It was. So there might be a cute guy involved. You don't know.
Yeah, he was a cute guy. both of them. So anyway, but wait, I digress. Okay. So yes, you can do that. You can swap your house. So you might have a house in Vermont. You can swap it with somebody for a week in Spain or whatever. Speaking
Mhm.
of Spain and European countries, some cities in things, well, not that they're all European, but some larger cities like Japan or Portugal or Croatia will
Mhm.
allow you to use Wi-Fi for free everywhere you go. So you
Oh, I
get like
love that.
free hotspots everywhere. So,
Yeah.
you can factor in those kinds of things when you're trying to decide on where you want a vacation and how
Mhm.
you want to do it. But I think probably just planning ahead instead of making knee-jerk decisions while you're away. Make sure you have enough money, make sure you exchange it at the right rate, make sure you planned out your packing, make a list so you're not forgetting a bunch of things, and spend that time while you're building up to your vacation on the enjoyment of planning for it. I hate to say this because, I don't tell people, hey, go shopping, but that
Mhm.
lightweight suitcase, especially if you buy it at a bargain store, can save you a lot of money over the years in packing and
Mhm.
save your back as well. And if you get that little cube thing that fits under the seat like I did, man, I used it so much, everybody that sees one wants one. And they're all like, where'd you get that? They're hard to find, but they do exist. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I like the idea too that like, you're not saying when you go on vacation, make sure that you've budgeted a certain amount per day because you're right. Most people are going to go and be like, look, I've worked hard all year. This is my time to really enjoy. So, it's nice
Yeah.
to still be able to enjoy, but here's some tips for saving some money while you're doing it.
Well, that's the point. I want you to spend money on the things you will remember and you love. But I
Hmm.
don't, for instance, who goes to the airport and says, "Wow, that was really great that I overpaid in that short-term garage parking lot and I didn't get to go out to dinner because of it," right?
Right.
Nobody does that. So prepay your airport parking. You might even maybe valet parking sounds expensive to you and you think, "Well, I'll just park in the garage and I'll walk over there." It's
Hmm.
probably the other way around. The valet parking is
Yeah.
probably least expensive and you can get deals on it and they're so competitive. So if
Hmm.
you get it ahead of time rather than like driving to the airport and saying, "Where am I going to park? I got to park in this lot because I'm running late and it's more expensive, but I'll deal with it when I come back." Get a coupon
Right.
ahead of time, prepay it, get in their little van and off you go.
And the other thing that I do too is if you're going with other family members or a big family, we carpool because otherwise you're
Yes.
paying for two people at the parking lot and it's a couple $100 by the time you get back.
Yeah,
So
there's no
all
doubt.
really good tips. Now I want to go on vacation.
Well, I just have one last thing when you said if you're going with other people. And this is where I'm going to say, I'm the little person on your shoulder here saying, don't let
Mhm.
yourself get boxed in. Don't let yourself get goaded into spending more money because the other people you're on
Mm.
vacation with can do it. If it's not affordable for you, there's no shame in saying, look, I want to go do that, but really, I think I'm just going to do this other thing instead. Or just flat out say, we don't have the same amount of money to draw on. So I don't want to stop you from doing it, but
Mhm.
just know that I don't want to come home to a pile of debt. And I'm sure you don't want that for me either. So I'm going to find some
Yeah,
things I can do while you're doing that.
that's
But
such a good point. We've talked about before having my sister in because I bring her up a lot. But when we go on vacation, she likes to go out or do our meals like one meal a day. So it's either,
yeah,
she doesn't like to spend money at restaurants, and that's true. Like she's like, go ahead if you want to do it, but she doesn't want to be forced into spending that money every night. And that's true. People have different ideas of what they want to do on vacation.
yeah, and it's really hard to know that, especially if you don't discuss it in the beginning when you're planning the
Hmm.
vacation. Somebody says, "Hey, I'm going to go to, and would you like to go?" And you say, "Yeah, okay." And then you feel obligated. And so then there's a plane ticket and all the expenses that
Yeah.
happen after that. You really do have to speak up for yourself and just say, "I want to go on vacation, but I don't want to spend the next 3 years paying for it."
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, let's get your phone number if anybody has any questions.
Sure, it's 413-773-3333.
And you can go to hugyourmoney.com. All info is available up there as well. We'll talk to you again next week. Thank you.
Thanks, Jess.
Financial Fitness is back again next week with the Money Doctor, Dr. Francis Ram, right here on WHMP.